Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to Money in the Morning, aka Economic Elevation, aka Financial Consciousness. Sorry that I'm a couple minutes late. I apologize for that. I hope everybody's having a good Saturday. It's great to see you, and I hope you're feeling good and feeling black and intelligent and proud and everything else. I am feeling good. I didn't get up super early this morning. I actually let myself sleep in a little bit, but I've been thinking about a lot that's been going on with this economy. In case you don't know, the price of oil has skyrocketed, and that's been pretty interesting for obvious reasons, right? Because you got this thing going on in Iran, and it's fascinating because I don't really know if there is has been presented a logical reason that we're fighting this war. It seems to me that it might be, about something a little more sinister in terms of people having political motivations, which obviously is not an appropriate reason to fight a war, but hey, whatever. It is what it is. I can say this: when you have a spike in the price of oil at that magnitude, what you're running into an inflation problem because the price of oil and gas and all that is calculated in inflation. Also, you run the risk of an economic slowdown or even a recession. So this war, as expensive as it is, could very easily push us into a recession or something like that. Now, again, is that a reason to panic? I don't think it's a reason to panic just because recession. I think war itself is more serious than economic cycles because economic cycles happen all the time. We have ups and downs, and that which goes up must come down. That which goes down must come up. And so sometimes a recession can actually be a wonderful investing opportunity. But the bigger concern obviously is just that war just kind of sucks, right? And we don't want to, be caught in that for a long time, right? Because peace is something that I think we undervalue the peace and how hard it is to achieve it. And so we take it for granted and we're ready to go and blow people up and fight everybody we disagree with. And I don't like any of that. I don't like any of that. Even in my own community, I can't stand it when people are in different political parties and they want to fight each other and hate each other. And just to me, it's just bad energy, right? So anyway, with that said, if you want to understand a little bit more about some investment moves you can make during this time. On my Instagram, which is Dr. Boyce Finance, I put up a post where I basically talked about what was going on, and then there, if you type the word oil under any post on Dr. Boyce Finance, my Instagram, um, you can get a link of something I put together with different strategies you can apply that can help you take advantage of a spike in the price of oil. Because there are investment moves that you can make, not just for an opportunity to make more money, or even income. If you want income, you can do that too. Um, but um, but also you got to protect yourself. And because here's the thing, this economy, this market, it's been really volatile, and it's fine, but it's kind of like this baby. It's like this pet alligator where you're kind of like, okay, I think I have the alligator under control, but I gotta watch my hands because he might have a bad day and bite my arm off, right? And so you ever see that where you have the trainer? I think that one guy, the poor guy, what was it, the crocodile hunter? Didn't he die like that? Didn't he die like because he was so competent with the animals and everybody thought he'd always be safe, and then one day one of the animals just went ballistic and ate him or killed him or something. Shout out to the crocodile guy. But anyway, or was it Crocodile Dundee? I get them mixed up. I get they be looking alike sometimes to me. But anyway, with that being said, it's like just one of these things where with this market, I feel like it's a little bit like a crocodile. Like, when I'm in there, I'm really, really, really hedging my risk and really being really careful. So, for example, those of you that are doing stuff with stock options, which I keep saying that's the best way on earth to make extra money. I sent you all a fast cash action plan on something that I did, with some call spreads, but it was designed to be super conservative. And also, so you want to do two things. You want to be super conservative, in my view, not invest in advice, my view. Super conservative in your disposition, but also you have to watch it like a hawk. So you come in an invested environment like this, you want, especially if you're making, short-term moves, you want to think conservatively, like sort of prepare for anything, and be prepared to deal with anything, but then also observe carefully because this market did some interesting things where you would have one day where it would start off and it would be 1,000 points down, then by the afternoon it'd be up again, or maybe it starts the day strong, and then the president makes one announcement, and next thing you know, everything just crashes. Like I think that he made an announcement regarding unconditional surrender, and with the Iranians, we will only accept unconditional surrender, and I was like, oh well, that's not good. That's kind of tough, stringent, and immediately the stock market just went kaboom. I mean, that sucker just went kaboom. And it was sad to watch, but at the same time, though, if you are a consistent, resilient investor, then those kabooms become opportunities for you, in my opinion. I mean, there's money in them, there hills, and also diversification is really big too. So it's really fascinating. I'll keep you guys posted on what I'm seeing and what's going on, and it's really interesting. And by the way, speaking of stock options, the options income class we meet on the 9th. It's called Prime. So if you want to join us, it's not too late. You can go to drboyceprime.com. And there's a training there called Prime 101, and that's the beginner stuff where you want to go through that, and then when you come to class, you'll kind of be up to speed, and there's literally legitimate ways I can show you how to make money and pull income out of the market that day. Like you can literally apply it the next morning, and it really does work. That's how I pay my bills. So feel free to go to drboyceprime.com, and you can bring your whole family and participate with us. It's a fun thing to do. All right, so one thing I wanted to show you was a couple of things I want to mention actually. I want to talk about this coming. Y'all do know that there's a retirement crisis happening right now. Everybody know that? Um, yeah, there's a retirement crisis that's happening right now, and it's ugly. And it's gonna get worse, and largely because nobody thinks about the future, and we're not incentivized to do that. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But before I do that, I want to also share something that I put on my Instagram. And it was this video. This guy made a video. It was really good. It was about Atlanta. My wife and I love Atlanta. We have a house there, and I consider it like a second home. And I watched this video, and I just thought about it. And I like thinking about stuff a lot. I just do. And I've been thinking for a long time. So sometimes stuff that comes out of my mouth will be weird, but that comes from like 30 years of just thinking about the same thing over and over again. So if I sound a little weird or a little different, I'm not asking you to ever agree with me. Like you shouldn't say, well, Dr. Boyce said it, so it must be true. It's more like just consider it. Just think like maybe in year 10, maybe after 10 years of thinking, he thought this, but then after 20 years of thinking, he thought that, but after 30 years of thinking, he became a weirdo and an alien, and he's seeing things from a completely different point of view, right? And so I'm going to play this, and I'm going to actually describe my reaction. I'm going to stop it when it gets to me yapping, but I want you all to see what he has to say because it was really, really deep and interesting and very personal for me. And I'm going to play this. Here it goes. Tell me if you can hear the audio. Here, I'm playing it right now. This is true, then Atlanta might be doomed. Check it out.
You'll hear it said often that Atlanta is a tale of two cities, but most people don't actually understand why or the severity of the problem. So let's look at the data. This is where the majority of black folks live in Atlanta, and pay attention to this red line. It's going to be important for everything that we look at. The vast majority of children living in poverty live below this line. If you are uninsured, you likely live below this line. If you have diabetes, you likely live below this line. If you are rent burdened, you live below this line. If you have access to broadband, you likely live below this line. Look at these numbers. If you live below the line, it takes longer to get to work. Your household income is lower. Businesses are significantly smaller. 1 million to 50 million. You don't live close to fresh food. And all of that adds up to living on average 20 years less than if you lived on the north side of the city.
Yes, I assume he's telling. Yeah. So I kept going, but since I'm right here, there's no reason to play a recording of me talking when I'm talking to you now. I watched that video, and I'm gonna tell you, when you've kind of been studying like finance and economics for a long time, like I have, and I've been black for a while. I didn't get a surgery or anything. This is how I was born. You can't be transracial. Um, I I've just seen it a lot. Every year you see it over and over and over again, and it seems to me that those problems have been around for a while. Give me a yes if you would agree with me that this stuff is nothing new. That this stuff was there. You could have gave that same speech probably in the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, 2000s, 2010s. 2020s, you'll be giving the same speech in the 2030s, 2040s, 2050s, 2060s, 2070s, 2080s, 2090s. Does anybody else get tired of that? Or is it just me? Or am I just act like a grumpy old man? My wife says sometimes, like she says, Boyce, you got to stop shaking your fist at the air. And I'm like, but sometimes my fist, I can't help it. It be calling me, man. It be calling me. I can't take it. I just can't take it. And so it kind of I kind of get sad. It's so depressing. It's so depressing to be repeatedly reminded of a problem that you've been convinced that you can't actually solve on your own. And it seemed to me that in so many cases, the solution always comes back to like who we're supposed to vote for. You know, I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna just be quite honest with you. I watched, I knew Jesse Jackson really well. I talked to him a lot. I used to go on his show every week. I know his family, his daughter Santita. I don't, the other ones, I don't, the other parts of the family I didn't know as well, but Santita, talked to her a billion times, just loved him. Just so you know, Jesse Jackson was a wonderful human in terms of just human to human interaction. He was the kind of guy where back when I was on the faculty of Syracuse, he gave me his cell phone. And I'd call his phone and I'd say, "Hey, Reverend Jackson, I wanted to talk to you for a minute." And he'd say, "Well, I can't talk right now. I'm about to meet the ambassador of Guyana or something." It would be something like that. You're like, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm gonna call you on Tuesday then." All right. Like he was that kind of a man. I just had so much respect for him, and I watched his funeral, and I didn't want to go because I just don't like I felt like I could pay my respects from where I am, but it was just sad to kind of see politicians using that as an opportunity for a campaign stop. I did not enjoy that. I was like, no, it's a funeral, and I heard his son say specifically, leave your politics at home. Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter. Independent, liberal, conservative, everybody's welcome. And that to me, I like that unifying spirit, and I didn't enjoy watching the politicians say, okay, well, we're not really going to do a lot for the black community in general. Like when they ask for reparations, we're going to ignore them. Dr. Claude Anderson used to go to Capitol Hill, and he would search out members of the Congressional Black Caucus specifically to present his reparations studies and plans and his Powernomics plans, things like that. And they would run away from him. They would hide. They did not want any parts of it. And the only reason Dr. Anderson is known around the world is because when you look at our young people now, especially those who are under 45, 50, they really are tired of nonsense. Like they want substance. They don't want to sit together and sing Negro spirituals and believe a change is gonna come one day. Like they're not thinking like that. They're like, no, my life needs to get better and it needs to get better soon. And so Dr. Anderson's support, the people that love him tend to be like the younger crowd, where people are, maybe like certain intelligent hip hop artists or the Earn Your Leisure guys. They did a big honor for Dr. Anderson. I've always loved him because I read his book and I said, man, okay, this is it. Powernomics. This is okay. You mean race? We're in a competition, so we must control resources. We have to figure this out. Now, and if you read Dr. Anderson's books, what you'll notice is that he does a very thorough job of explaining exactly why you were economically screwed. He gives you details all the way down to the price of a slave in 1822. This man breaks it down like it ain't never been broken down before. So he'll tell you all day what the problem is, just like this guy will tell you what's mentioned in the video. Again, he did a good video. I'm not talking about the person in this video. He'll dissect the problem, but what you don't see is you don't see a lot of people really dissecting a black empowered solution. You see, like a lot of times the conclusion will always be something regarding it always ends up going back to like let's vote for the Democrats, let's keep the Republicans out of office. It becomes that kind of conversation. And I'm not telling you to be Democrat or Republican, but that has not worked, right? That we know that has not worked because if it worked, then those conversations would have ended in 1974, right? I mean, if it had worked, then your children would have been born in nice, clean neighborhoods, and we wouldn't have a problem with millions of black kids not reading at grade level, millions of black families broken, black children dying in the street, lots of black people stressed out from working for white folks. Lots of people being financially insecure, etc. Paycheck to paycheck, all this good stuff, right? So going back to it, the reason I've noticed a lot of young people really embrace Dr. Anderson is because he's kind of gotten past the BS. And I can tell you because I went to go see him last week, and for years he was very frustrated because he said all these people that claim to care about the black communities, leading politicians, when it's time to sit down and really talk about black economic solutions that are going to work, they ain't really got time for that. They'll show up at Jesse Jackson's funeral and tell you all how terrible Donald Trump is, but they won't sit down and say, okay, let's really solve this dang thing. Okay, we got 10 billion. Where do we put this 10 billion in Chicago to elevate the community's condition? There's a whole panel of experts, and myself included, that you could sit down with that could give you a very clear, simple plan and make things happen. And what happens is that I am under the belief, and tell me if you agree. I'm under the belief that they are afraid of the idea of having. Uh-oh, can you guys hear me? Okay, I froze for a minute. Let me know if you can hear me. Okay, let me know if you can hear me, and then I'll tell you what I think they're afraid of. Give me a yes if I'm coming through. Okay, I want to make sure because I just like froze. I literally. So the CIA is on their job, right? They're like, we got to shut him down. He about to say something. All right, thank you, Intel Pro. I'm glad you're here. All right, so here, so I believe that historically there's always been a fear of truly impactful, solution-oriented Black people who are truly going to make the Black community competitive. There's a reason they feared the Nation of Islam in Farrakhan. I've been around the Nation of Islam for many decades. I never joined, but I know a lot of people in the organization. There's no place I can go on earth where if I see a brother with with the bow tie or with, from the nation, they know me. I'm talking about London to Africa to whatever, right? And I've never seen anybody. I've never been harmed by anybody in the Nation of Islam. So what makes them so dangerous to you, right? And well, what makes them dangerous is that they are disciplined. What makes them dangerous is that on average, individuals in the Nation of Islam, they care about all the things that are going to make Black people whole and successful. They care deeply about family. They care deeply about things like financial responsibility, saving your money, investing your money. They are builders. They are educators. And so then when you turn around and you go to the public school and you say half of your Black children cannot read, we got a guy from the Nation of Islam who's going to come in and discipline your Black boys, the ones that you say are out of control. Well, he knows how to discipline them and motivate them and make them not just become average, but he can actually make them extraordinary human beings. Why would you be afraid of that? Why would that be a problem? It's a problem because they don't want that. They're used to containing and controlling their Negroes. And this is an artifact, this is partly an artifact of capitalism. If you ask me, if you say to me, is capitalism racist? I would say, yeah, of course it is. Capitalism's racist, it's sexist, but really it's all about the money. And whatever tool it can use to pin you down, hold you in position so it can screw you good, it's going to do it. So that means that you being Black is the pathway to control, then sure, they'll do that. If it means you being illiterate, it's the pathway, then it'll use that. If it means you being insecure, it's the pathway. Okay, well, we'll take that. It ain't it's not the same. So it's kind of an equal opportunity exploitation tool for those who are not prepared for competition. That's what it ultimately comes down to. And so really, um, when you hear these conversations about how horrible the condition of Black people might be, first off, we should know that there's nuance to that. Every Black person is not in the middle of the mud. That's a really a negative stereotype in general that every Black person struggling and stupid and doesn't know what's going on and can't get an ID and doesn't know, like just can't figure out life. That's not true. There's millions of competent Black people that have overcome things, right? And it's not as if they were born with silver spoons in their mouth. In fact, a lot of you, give me a yes in the chat if you've overcome stuff and you became successful and reliable and you have good kids and you're doing well in life. Like, give me a yes, right? There's a lot of people out there like that, right? But that's not a narrative that fits the agenda of other people, right? Other people's agenda is one that's built on Black people are broken and stupid and incapable of leading themselves. Therefore, we must own them. We must control them. Like we can't let a Black man educate these kids in our public schools because that would take money away from us and also it would we know that they're just not equipped to do this, so we're going to keep them here in the middle of this cesspool of diseased education, right? We're going to keep them in this really this almost like intellectual STD that they're giving the poor kids, where they could be great, they could be do amazing things if they were exposed to the right ideas. And so what Dr. Claude Anderson does is so beautiful is he becomes just that guy that just where you wake up and you say, "Oh my God, okay, I should have been reading this all along. Whoa, this is well, okay, now I understand. Now I'm ready. Now, he brought out the best in me as a scholar. Or you have other people like in hip hop right now, D1, who's a very good friend. He comes in. I'm actually bring D in at some point. I talked to him the other day, and D1, I jokingly said to him, I said, when you're going on these shows and talking to these different hip hop artists, and you're bringing common sense to the table, like maybe you should not make money rapping about the death of your own people. I said that's almost like a disinfectant. It's like I said, D should stand for disinfectant. You should be disinfectant one because you're literally shining light on the fungus and kill, when fungus gets exposed to light, it starts to die. So you're opening the windows and ventilating the air because we were sort of stuck in this just this nasty toxic space that they call black culture, and where common sense was thrown out the window and everything seemed to lead to an abysmal outcome. Let's be clear. The solutions for people that are struggling are not that complex, honestly. They're really not. America, if you can't get wealthy in America, then you can't make money nowhere because America is the richest country on the planet. I mean, seriously, if you can't get rich in the richest country on the planet, that's like saying I can't find ice cream in an ice cream shop. Damn it, there's ice cream in the ice cream shop. You just might have to fight somebody for it. That's all. Like they got you over here. They got you in the storage room, and you looking for ice cream in the storage room. They got plastic cups in there. So you up here like every time I think I'm eating ice cream, it tastes like plastic. That's because they're lying to you. Like we're in a Baskin Robbins, dude. There's 32 flavors, and there's also more ice cream in the back. You gotta move. But in order for you to move, you have to have the courage to move. Reposition yourself. In order to win in the American economy, it is about positioning. We know for a fact, for sure, there are going to be winners and losers in this economy. That's just a reality. And as much as we want to fantasize about what the world would be like if everybody got the same thing, economic models show that just does not work. Human beings have to be incentivized. If they're not incentivized, China used to do that. China was like, well, let's just pay everybody the same salary, even if they don't show up to work. Well, you know what happened? Did nobody show up to work? Really? There's also studies that show. I just saw this the other day. I knew it. I'd seen it years ago, but it was brought back to my attention. There's studies. Do you know that? Check this out. Do you know that they find that if you have work teams at work, or let's say group projects in a class or whatever, that if you have one person working on their own, they work really hard. If it's two people, they still work hard, but not as hard. And if you get the group above like 4 or 5 people, the productivity rate drops tremendously because there's no accountability and everybody kind of blends into the group. So the incentive for you to work hard is much lower. So what happens is, if you remember, anybody remember in college when you would do a group project and only one person ended up doing all the work, right? So things like that matter, right? Psychology matters, incentives matter. So with communism and socialism, they sound great in theory, but when you put people in a scenario where there's no incentive to accomplish anything, then guess what? People aren't going to accomplish anything. In fact, a lot of you probably have that issue. How many of you grew up under tough circumstances where you grew up? Oh, okay, wait, I froze again. How many of you grew up where you were just hungry, like you went and you got something because you knew that if you didn't work, you wasn't going to eat, and you had a dream and you worked hard for the dream, or you wanted that degree, or you wanted that job, or you wanted to start that business or whatever, and you hustled to get what you wanted, right? Like that hustle culture. A lot of us grew up in that. A lot of us, I'm proud of us Gen Zers and Boomers, and or are we Gen Z? Sorry, Gen Xers. We're Gen Xers. See, I'm Gen X. We be forgetting stuff. But the Gen Xers and the Boomers, right? We knew how to fight because, I mean, if you grew up in the 70s or the 60s or the 80s even. It was just like kind of different, like my mama, I used to get up at 4 years old and I would go get on the church bus and I would go to church and be gone for 4 or 5 hours. And my mom and daddy would wake up like 1 or noon and wouldn't even know that I was gone to church. Like, who does that? I said, y'all could have got me kidnapped. I could be getting trafficked in Mexico right now. But anyway, like it was just a different era. You get on your bike, you disappear at 9 in the morning, go on all kinds of adventures. You in the woods. You done built a tree house. You done went to so and so's house to watch cartoons and eat peanut butter sandwiches, and then you come home when the street lights come on, and your mama had no idea where you were. Right? So we had an independence about us and a hustle about us where we kind of learned some things that kids today don't really understand, right? Because unfortunately they were really, really well protected, which you probably should protect kids more than we were protected. But the downside of that is that motivation just isn't there. I can't, Alicia has 3 kids, and I saw somebody that where they were saying that being a stepdad it sucks and it's terrible and you're a simp, and I was like, gosh, I wish they understood how much fun it is to raise. I really enjoyed raising these kids. This has been a blast, but the funny challenge with raising kids though is like they're like so well taken care of that the things that used to motivate me don't motivate them. Like if I come in and I say, I'll give you $20 to do something, but me, I would have been all over it, right? But for them, money's not a thing. So I'm like, oh my God, what did we do? Like what motivates you now? What is it that's so we had to kind of pull back on the things we were doing for them. Because some stuff, if you have enough money, it's like, oh yeah, it's $50, sure, well, let's pay for it or whatever. I mean, in fact, the girls were driving an Audi, like it's their first car. You're not supposed to drive an Audi as your first. You're supposed to drive a hoopty. I'm sure that is a brand somewhere, right? So you're supposed to be in a hoopty, not an Audi. But it's like, well, the Audi, that's the old car. You can drive that, right? So what do you do? How do you motivate them? And it's really difficult. It's a complex thing. But ultimately, incentives do matter. That's the point there, right? So the thing about capitalism, when it's done properly, is it can create incentives and opportunities for people that are the most prepared, that save their money, that make investments, that take risk, that go hard, that get skill, can get ahead of people who don't, right? And really, when you allow your blackness to be put you into a box, almost as if you're disabled, almost as if you can't compete because something's wrong with you. You're too disadvantaged to be taken seriously. You can't sit at the grown-ups table. You got to sit at the little children's table. That steals your joy, in my opinion. That steals your sovereignty. It steals your ability to say, I am a man, I'm gonna go get it, or I am a black woman, I'm gonna go make it happen. To me, it replaces that with, well, you can't do certain things because you're black, so let's just wait for the politicians to do it. So give your power to the politician and then let them kind of go and make it happen for you. And it just reminds me of when I was little and I got duped. See, this people been getting pimped since the beginning of time. Here's how I got pimped when I was 7. There was this little asshole named Warren. I'll never forget his name because it made me so mad. So let me tell you what happened. I won a competition at church, and at church they used to give us rewards for memorizing stuff from the Bible, right? And I really wanted to win. And like I mean, I would come home with like a pumpkin pie or a big Hershey bar. I mean, I was pretty good, right? And so they would have you memorize things like books of the Bible, right? Like I remember the New Testament: Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, First and Second Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, right? So I stuff like that. So because I won one of these contests, they let me they had a big thing of pennies, and if you're 8 years old, that seems like $1 million, right? And they had this big thing of pennies. They said you could put your hand in there and pull as many pennies out as you could. And back then a penny meant more than a penny does now. Pennies don't mean nothing, but back then, you get enough money, you could buy you a pack of Bubblicious for 20 cents, 25 cents, whatever, right? So I wanted to go in and just grab as many pennies as I could. So let me tell you what Warren did. Warren did exactly to me what politicians do to us. This is why I don't really trust most politicians. So Warren, he said, I was 8. Warren's 11, and when you're 8 years old, an 11-year-old seems like a grown up. Like it seems like you're talking to a grown ass man. And Warren says, here's what we can do. let me do it for you. Let me grab the pennies out, and because my hands are bigger. And he pulled his hand up, and my hand was all tiny next to his, and I was like, yeah, his hand is bigger. And he's like, yeah, and then I'll give you the money. I'll give you most of it. I'll keep a little bit, but I'll give you, some of it or most of it, right? And I remember in my little 8-year-old brain, I remember thinking, I'm getting played right now, but it just made sense, because you're 8 and nothing, you're just stupid. So I said, okay. So I let Warren take my spot and I gave him my opportunity. I handed my power to Warren, who was going to represent me the way these bullshit politicians represent us. And Warren goes and he grabs all the pennies. And you know what that Negro did? He put the money in his pocket and never ever gave me my money back. He never gave me nothing. He didn't give me nothing. So Warren, and Warren, if you here, if I see you, we're gonna fight because I'm still mad about that. And I learned a valuable lesson at that point. It's like you got to be real careful about handing your power over to other people. And who knows, maybe that's what I got to talk to the therapist about. My wife's a therapist, right? So maybe I got to get her to help me process this so I'm not looking for a guy named Warren that I can beat up on a Tuesday. But still, though, that to me is what I see when I see people saying, no, 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 you have these problems and don't worry, we're going to go fix it for us. Just make sure you give us money or vote for us or whatever it is that you want. I'm not saying you shouldn't do those things. I know, politics is complex, but at the end of the day, stick your own damn hand in the jar, pull out your own pennies. The only people you can really trust are people that really have your best interests at heart. That's it. You can trust yourself, you can trust your family, your wife, your kids. I believe black leadership does not belong to these Negroes in Capitol Hill. It doesn't belong to these suckers on TV. Black leadership starts in the family, it starts in the home. Because the only people that you can really trust to do what's best for black children are black mothers and black fathers. Do you agree? Do we agree on that? I don't trust a white lady from the suburbs to make sure my children get a great education because she has no incentive to do that. Her incentive is to support the teachers union and to make sure she's getting a good salary. And if the kids can read at the end, then that's a bonus, but maybe they can't. So whatever, right? But then every now and then you have, which is great. Sometimes you'll have. This is why I believe black children should be taught by black people. This is why black kids, I believe, got a better education before integration. Is you will have mothers and fathers that will teach other people's children as if they're their own. Like I have that. Like when I see a black child, the reason I always enjoy being a stepdad, so to speak, is because I see every black child as one of my kids. Like if you black and you're a child and you need help and you need guidance, it is my job, my solemn responsibility to be there for you because my measuring stick of masculinity a long time ago was being responsible for the community that is yours. So when the white man walks through the black neighborhood and he sees everything's falling apart and people are not protected and the children are not educated or whatever, I don't look at him and say, Mr. White Man, what are you going to do about this? I look at myself and say, man, why aren't you doing more? Right? Like, and I kid you not. Like, let me show y'all something. I don't went all Malcolm Xy, so I don't want to be too scary and serious. But let me show you. I did this. I like us winning, and I believe we can win. I know we can win. I know we can win. And the reason I know we can win partly is driven by maybe I don't know how weird this sounds, but I know we can win because I know I won. And I won. I became a champion of finance. I beat out all the white boys, the Europeans, the Asians, everybody, and learned finance at the highest level. So I'm like, okay, if I did this, then let me see if I can help some other people do this because I think that we're supposed to win. So, because to me, at the end of the day, blackness is supposed to be, to me, a type of power and success and pride. Like I believe deeply in black pride, right? So, like for example, I put this on my thing. Like this is to me, this is my. If you want to know what I dream about every day, this is what I dream about, right? So I put this little meme up of this little kid, and he's running a race, but he's not even looking at the opponents. He's looking at the crowd. And I said, this is gonna be black kids staring down the competition after we build their generational wealth. After we do our job, there you go. You see that? Look at him. I think so to me it's kind of like where are our bragging rights, right? Like I think that we by making the sacrifices, by doing what we need to do. Oh, you couldn't see it? Were you able to see the screen? Let me know if you were able to see that. Did everybody see that? Somebody said they couldn't see it. We can't see it. So okay, I see some yeses and nos. Okay, that's odd. Let me share it again. I'll share it again. All right, so let me know if you can see my screen. Tell me if you can see it. It's right here. All right. So basically, so I'll play it as I explain this. So to me, like when I saw this video, I saw something where it reminded me of how proud I want our kids to be able to get in people's faces and say, no, we got this. Not only do we got this, but we got this better than you're gonna got this, so to speak. Like we're ready, we're prepared. We were trained by the best. We were trained. We are elite. We are the Navy SEALs of Black economics. We know it. Don't come in our neighborhood talking to us like we stupid, like we don't know what's going on, and we're a day late and a dollar short and undisciplined and ignorant. No, that's not who we are. I believe our kids are supposed to be elite and prepared at every single level. And this to me is a better objective than the whole internalization of victimhood to the point where we believe we can't do anything on our own. There's nothing. Every single psychological study I've ever seen says that when you wake up every day constantly reminding yourself that you're a victim, you ain't gonna accomplish nothing. You really can't win. Like, Michael Jackson in The Wiz, you can't win. You can't break even and you can't get out of the game. People say things will get better, but really they're just staying the same, right? No, to hell with that. No, we can win. We're not trying to break even. Equality is a myth. It is not going to ever happen in America, in my opinion. Somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. That's how things have been going for 400 years. And also, you can get out of the game if you want to. If you want out of the game, you can get out. And what does that mean? That means that if you are in a situation where you feel that systematic racism is kicking you upside your head, uh, we also can build systems too. We can walk away from systems too. The people that built the NFL were walking away from a system. They could have went and got jobs, but they didn't. They said, we're going to build a system called the National Football League, and we're going to create these teams. These teams, they're not worth very much right now, but they're going to have funny names like the Chicago Bears and the New York Giants and the Minnesota Vikings, and they're going to be our teams. They're not worth very much, but we're going to pour into them. We're going to raise these businesses the same way you raise a child, the same way you feed a child every day. We're going to feed these little companies, and one day they're going to be worth something, and they're going to make us powerful. The Jewish community went to Hollywood. They went out to California and they went and found some land that nobody wanted. They went out to pretty much the desert, kind of, and they said, we're going to go out here and we're going to shoot these moving pictures and we're going to build these little worthless businesses called Paramount Pictures, called Warner Brothers Studios, called Universal Studios, and we're going to pour into these little raggedy businesses until they become worth something, they become powerful. And as we're pouring into this, we're going to give all of our attention to this. No, you can't come along and offer us a better job. We don't want a job. Why would I want a job when all my energy needs to be poured into this thing that I'm working on that's going to benefit the people that I care about? And then in a generation or two, our children will flex and have so much power that if you dare insult a member of the Jewish community and you're in our territory, then we will promptly stomp your ass and blackball you to oblivion. You will never work again in this town if you insult our people. So my question is, where is our pride in terms of saying we're going to find something that's small and raggedy and we're going to pour into it, give it all of our attention, ignore everything else, focus on that so that in the year 2060 our kids will have a territory where they say, look, if you come up in here and you say one negative thing about black people, you will be destroyed. You will not succeed. You can't win in this space. That to me is something I can get excited about. I can't get excited about integration because integration didn't work. I can't get excited about equality because as an athlete, I never ran a race in a track meet and wanted to tie. I always wanted to win. I can't get excited about waiting around for other people to like me, carry us, or whatever. No, no, what excites me is power. Powernomics. What excites me is sovereignty. What excites me is having our children safe, happy, and doing well because they have parents that have the discipline to create that structure for them. Do you understand? That's what it is. Every child that's safe and warm and protected is protected by some sort of structure. There is a physical structure, there is a family structure, there is a cultural structure that protects them. Little black girls that when they are taken advantage of and harmed, a lot of times it's because there's no structure protecting them. That maybe the father's not in the house, maybe the family isn't unified, maybe mama was at work at that time when the R. Kelly came by the house, right? So at the end of the day, when your children are not protected, that falls on you 100%. That does not fall on, oh, they don't care about us and and Black Lives Matter. No, there ain't no other community based on what I've seen in this world. And this is why another reason I love Dr. Claude Anderson and Powernomics. His website is powernomics.com, by the way. If you have some extra money, please go there and support this man. He deserves all of our support forever. And me and my wife, we love Dr. Anderson so much. We bought a bunch of Powernomics books. When we got married, we didn't want any gifts. We didn't let anybody give us any gifts. We just gave away copies of Powernomics. So I said, my marriage is the one of the biggest investments I'm going to make. And when you invest, you're telling people who you are or who you want to be, right? And so in my mind, I said, who the hell am I? I believe in Powernomics. I believe in Black family. I believe in Black women and Black love. So this is me making investments that are consistent with who I am. I'm gonna tell you who the hell I am, right? So I encourage you, tell people who the hell you are and be proud of that. And I would say that with Dr. Anderson, I love this man. If you have extra money, buy a bunch of copies and give them out to kids in the neighborhood. Be that guy, be that woman, be that person who, because remember, you got to understand that when you have energy and true belief and confidence in who you are and what you want to do and what you want to see in the world will bend and warp itself into the vision that you see. I'm tired of hearing, I can't stand it. It bothers me extensively when I hear a Black man or Black woman say, I'm a product of my environment. That works until you're about, well, right? You shouldn't be saying that when you're 35 or 40 years old. And I'm not making fun of anybody. I'm not trying to dog nobody. But in my view, why not get the skill set to gain enough energy and belief in what you're doing? I mean, you have faith, you go to church or whatever it is that you do, right? Gain enough energy spiritually to the point where you're not a product of your environment. Your environment becomes a product of you. Right? This is the thing that bothers me about racial politics in America because it really distorts and destroys our economics because we're trained to believe subtly, subconsciously, and otherwise that we are simply products of our environment, that we are simply the mice trying not to get stepped on by the elephants, that we that everything that happens to us is happening because somebody else is doing it. And all the studies show that the number one driver of depression and anxiety, which is very high in the Black community, the number one driver of depression and anxiety in humans and animals is when the animal is being tortured and punished and has no control over how to stop the pain. He does not feel that he has any say in what happens to him because he's been raised and trained to believe that he is a victim and that there's nothing that he can do. And that is very depressing. That impacts your serotonin levels in your brain. So I would just say accountability is something you have to embrace, even if you can't control everything. You got to believe you have some say in all of this, right? So I would encourage you. Let's start with the very basics. When I saw this guy's video, and I wasn't trying to make fun of this brother. I hope I didn't. It sounded like I was being critical of him making that video about the racial disparities and the income disparities and the wealth disparities. I was really challenging and saying, okay, where's our solution? And is our solution going to come from us, or are we waiting for the same people who've proven consistently that they don't have real solutions? Their goal is to get reelected. And remember, if you understand politics the way I kind of understand it, the billionaires and the corporations are the ones who are funding their election. And when you get elected, you're going to take care of the people that gave you money. You're not going to take care of the constituents are like um they're commodities. The constituents are not the principals. They're kind of the asset that you need to control in order to maintain power. So the people that help you acquire the assets are the people that give you $100 million so you can run a bunch of ads and get people riled up about gay marriage or immigration or whatever issue that you know that they're going to get mad about, and then they all show up and they vote for you and they think that you work for them when really they're working for the billionaire. Why? Well, because if the billionaire, APAC, whoever it is, if they don't give them that money and write that check, then there is no job for you. Then you're not going to get reelected. So economic sovereignty and economic independence is extremely important for anybody that has an agenda in the world that they want to see come to fruition. Whether your agenda is to make sure your kids are safe and good and that your life is good or that you have peace in your life, your economic independence is it's about more than just having enough money to buy a new car and a Gucci belt. It's really about the ability to say, you can't tell me what to do because you can't pay my bills. And for me, in my journey, that started when I was 18, 19 years old. I didn't like being told what to do by my parents. My father was a tough man. He was a police commander. So everything that came down with him was like, do what I say, right? And I didn't like that. I ain't gonna lie, it was very stressful and I did not enjoy that. But what I found was once I was able to pay my own bills and I moved out of that house, I if I didn't like what he was saying in the house, I would just be like, "See y'all later. I'm going home now." And guess what happened? You know what's funny is when they saw me do that, my father changed his behavior a little bit because he knew I had a choice. I didn't have to sit there and listen to the BS. I love my dad, I really do. But seriously, like if you ever have two, like when you get to a point, this is something I think people should understand about biology. When you have two adult males in the same space and one is an alpha and very territorial, it can lead to conflict. I never consider myself to be somebody who claimed to be the alpha. I could not be the alpha in my house. My father knew karate. He killed people. Like I was not going to try to infringe on his territory at all. And also I just respected this man. But when I got to be about 17 or 18, I had my own ideas and my own worldview. And that would lead to conflict because I wasn't trying to be the alpha, but I'm not a punk either, right? So ultimately, the solution was like it was just like watching that movie Baby Boy in a way, kind of, except I didn't have the single mother part, which I think kind of babied him a lot. And then he dealt with a real man in the house, and it created conflict, right? This happens all the time, right? And so, long story short, I would say to you that if you want to really just have that peace and sovereignty in your life, your financial security has to be a tip-top priority. I think, in fact, I would argue that it is a higher priority than damn near anything else that's going on because the way life is supposed to look. Let me draw a picture. Actually, let me mention one thing real quick, and then I'm gonna draw a picture for what I think an adequate life would really look like. I'm gonna try to summarize it really quickly, but it's in my head right now. First thing I want to mention though is I mentioned earlier that most people are not ready for retirement. In fact, it's hitting crisis levels, right? Because a lot of times we're not trained when we're young to invest in our future or invest in people or whatever, right? Like people say, "Oh, I don't want to have kids because kids are a burden," but then they get older and they wish they had kids because they need somebody to take them back and forth to their cancer treatments or whatever. Or maybe the 401k and stuff like that doesn't get invested in because you've got more immediate concerns, which I wish people would pay attention to that, but it happens. But anyway, we do have some stuff on retirement. If you want to kind of understand how retirement works, we have something called Retire Rich and Early. And if you go to drboyceretirement.com, you can take a look at that. That's drboyceretirement.com. And it basically breaks down retirement, how it all works, and different ways to view retirement in a way where you can work with what you have. A lot of retirement is not just about money, it's really about resources. Right? Resources can come from relationships. So I've seen people who didn't save for retirement at all, who did perfectly fine because they raised five kids that are all doing well financially. So they invest, so their investment wasn't in money, it was in people and quality people that understand responsibility, that understand some of the concepts we talk about in my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. They have five children that know that they're supposed to be an asset to the family, and they also had education and preparation. So they're all doing what? So you got five kids, they're all making a couple $100,000 a year, and they're all loyal to mama, loyal to daddy. This is how kingdoms are formed. Like people should understand this. This is something that kings used to think about, 1,000 years ago. It was like, okay, in fact, actually, this is really interesting too, just because this came to mind when I was taking a shower today, is I heard people talk about how being a stepfather is a burden, and but no man in his right mind would do this. But they don't know that actually there are times where kings would conquer other kingdoms, and they would take the other king after they killed him, they would take his children and raise his children, right? And they would love the children. And the reason they did it was because they didn't want the children to grow up and get revenge for killing their daddy. But then number two, they knew that if I raise a loyal son, even if he's not directly in my bloodline, that's another soldier that I have that can go out and help me get things done. And you saw this a little bit with the hip hop battle with the rapper Ti and 50 Cent. If you watched that, it was really fascinating. He has all these sons, and Ti said it. He said it actually. So I was really impressed by this. He said I want people to know that there are a line of men that are here to protect their mother and to protect the women in the family. And that to me is something that I think gets underappreciated. We don't understand how the building of your bloodline is essential to your survival and the protection of the people in the community. If you ever wonder why black people are victimized, little black girls are victimized, little boys are victimized, whatever, it's because you don't always have the protection of family. Like that's absolutely essential. And another thing too is I saw a guy who actually said that they asked him, they said, which group of people do you think is going to have the most power in the future in the world? And he, in his theory, now mind you, Africa is going to have a lot of power. Number one, because Africa has invested heavily in people. The women in Africa have lots of babies, and they didn't listen when Bill Gates was going around the world telling people that they shouldn't have kids. They were like, whatever, we ain't listening to you. And so Africa, because it has so many young people and the reproduction rate is high enough, they're going to have a lot of power. But also in the Western world, he said, which Western nation is going to have the most power? And he said, Israel. And they said, why? They said, well, because in the Western nations, you need at least a couple of things for your community or your country to prosper. And that is you have to have wealth and income. You also have to have children. You have to have reproduction. If you don't produce a person, then there's nobody there to do any work. There's nobody there to maintain anything, right? And they said that the reproduction replacement rate is has to be at least 2.1. And he said in the United States, Japan, even China and other places, Europe, the rate is lower than 2.1. So their populations are declining and disappearing. And also even with black people in America, for example, when we have, and I know that things like abortion, that's a controversial topic. I'm not here to judge, but when you convince people to eliminate their own bloodlines, that's something that should be thought about very deeply because you're really giving away a massive amount of wealth as well, not just bigger than wealth, right? But anyway, he said Israel is going to have power because Israel has two things. They have wealth and they have women that are having lots of kids. And he said that's what's going to lead them to have the most power on the earth. So really, when you're really thinking about this whole game of wealth and power and success, you got to factor in everything that's a resource. Where we got tricked is we started believing that wealth, success, and power comes from like going to college and getting the best job and then dedicating everything you can to that job. And certainly the corporation is a wealth builder 100%, but you're building the wealth for the shareholder. The shareholders are the ones who are building the generational wealth, not the employee. So the idea of dedicating your life to a job was really a trick. It's really like, okay, we're going to extract you because we're going to extract what we can from you by convincing you that you should abandon your own children so that you can go build wealth for our children. And this is the shareholder talking. That's why I say to you, if you want to win in American society, you have to be a shareholder. You want to own shares of stock in companies. You don't want to just be the employee. So here's what I think is an ideal life, honestly, in my opinion. An ideal life is a scenario where there's enough financial security for you to take some of the key things that matter for you and really do them in-house. I think you have to do them in-house. You can't let capitalism be the teacher of you and your children. You can't let capitalism build your culture. It doesn't build healthy culture. Because it's only going to build a culture that's going to generate the most money, and not even for you, but for the people that actually own you and own the capital, right? So, in my view, a perfect life would be a family that has enough financial security where they can be the primary controllers of how the children are educated. Because remember, education isn't just education, it's also an indoctrination. Education is very cultural. So they're not just teaching you, facts and information. You're learning value systems. So you're learning not just skills, facts, and information, but you're learning how to apply those skills, facts, and education. Your value system, see, if I give you a gun, I can give you a gun, but it's really your morals, ethics, and values that are going to determine what you do with that gun, where you aim it, what you shoot at. Does that make sense? If I raise you to be a hunter and tell you that hunting is important, then you're going to use a gun to go hunt. If I raise you to be a killer and I give you the same gun, same skill, you're going to go use the gun to kill people. If your value system says I'm here to be a defender, then you're going to use it for defense, right? So the educational process shouldn't just include what you learned. It's why you're learning it and what you're going to do with that information when you get it. So a lot of the challenge for the Black community is that you have lots of educated Black people who were given a value system that says once you get all this education and skill, your number one job is to go and serve serve the benefactor of whatever corporation you work for, right? So your job, your sole purpose in life is to take all your education and put everything you can into maximizing the wealth of white people. Like that, you're trained to do that. When you graduate from the HBCU and you got the degree in accounting, you're saying, well, okay, which white person am I going to go work for? And you're going to go there and you're going to work really hard. And you're not just going to work hard, but you're going to attach, you're going to internalize your self-esteem, and it's going to be your self-esteem internalization is going to be connected to your status and role at the company. So when they give you employee of the year or give you the fancy office or give you the raises and promotions, you'll see that as a sign of success. So you're going to want more of that. You're driving that dopamine of yeah, look at me, look at what I'm accomplishing, and people will literally, what's the word, not deny, not reject, what word am I looking for? Neglect. That's it. They will neglect their own family to do that. I mean, think about how many times you will see somebody who says, I can't get married because I'm too focused on my career, or I don't want to have no kids because my career is my top priority. How many times have you anybody ever seen that? Some of you in here might have done that. I've fallen for that trick, right? You literally feel like that job is more important than the other things, right? And it's not to say that you don't have a job. I mean, I'm sure that that white man that you work for, it's going to expect you to do your job, but you have other jobs that I believe were given to you by a higher power, right? So what I learned over time was that man's job is not as important as God's job. And in order for me to get to God's job, I had to go talk to God and figure out like who the hell am I? What am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to really be doing out here? Like this don't make no sense no more, right? And so what God's job says is God's job says, well, Boyce, why would you dedicate all this energy to give to people that don't even like you that much, don't even care about you? You should be pouring into the people that are directly linked to you, the people that you care about, right? So when I get up every day, it's like, okay, I've got these skills, I got these things I could be doing. I should be pouring as much of that into my community, my family, and the people around me because that's really how you win. Like that's a wealth conversation because a lot of wealth is about accumulating things, but it's also about sort of protecting and concentrating the accumulation in such a way that you have something to show for it. And I want to ask you this question. Pay attention now. How many times have you seen in your life or in other lives where somebody has worked their ass off and has nothing to show for it? Like how many people have you seen? Pay attention, think about this. How many people have you seen that have worked 40, 50 years and don't even have any net worth to speak of, have no assets at all, nothing, may not even have family, don't have, ain't got a wife, ain't got kids, ain't got money in the bank for real, for real. You know, like I mean, it happens all the time. I'm not judging, and I hope I didn't, get too close to home for anybody. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, but I'm saying you got to rethink this whole damn process seriously because this system, if you don't become conscious of it, it will drain you. And you'll be like, I'm exhausted, I'm overworked, I'm stressed out, I'm going hard, and I don't feel like I'm the one who's benefiting from this. Somebody's benefiting. When you're putting energy into the universe, there's somebody who's collecting that energy. And the best collector of other people's energy, literally sucking the life out of people, sucking the soul out of people. The best collector of energy is the American corporation. The corporation has you come to the job and do a certain task that leads to a certain outcome where they collect the profits from whatever you manufacture. They put those profits into the equity of the company. And what do you see? You see American companies growing faster than any companies on the entire planet because they have become masters at energy consumption and retention. They get fatter because the spoon doesn't miss their mouth when they're picking up something to eat. They're eating from society and they're just and it's going right down and you see it, right? That's why you'll see Apple worth $4 billion. That's why you see Nvidia worth $5 billion. You see Microsoft worth a billion. I meant to say trillion, sorry, $1 trillion, right? That's why you see these companies worth so much money because they are absolutely masterful at consuming as much energy as possible and not wasting it. They don't go give it all away. That all that spending and everything that we do, to sort of buy stuff, they don't really do that stuff. They're into conservation, conserving what they get. So really, a perfect life, in my view, would be one where you say, every not when I do stuff, I'm not just gonna do stuff just to do it. I'm gonna do it because I know why I'm doing it and who the benefactor of that activity is going to be. So if I'm spending energy today, I'm going to spend time with my daughter today because my daughter is part of my bloodline and she's going to grow up and become loyal to the family. So the more time I spend training her and loving her, she's going to have that much more ability to circle back and make sure that me and my wife are good when we get older. Not because we don't care about her too, but because it has to be an ecosystem. So part of my retirement investment is going to be me making sure I spend 3 hours a day or 10 hours a week or whatever my number is with my children. And then what that means too is that means I've got to find a way to become economically secure enough where I can detach from the corporate plantation and start taking that energy and pouring that into something that's a little bit closer to home, right? So at the end of the day, I would say the financial security helps because then you have the ability to educate your own kids. You also have the ability to make your money in a way that makes sense for you, doing something that you love and something that is going to benefit the people that you care about, not just going to make money doing whatever they tell you to do, right? Because a lot of times we're not conscious about how we make our money. We say, "Oh, what do you want me to do? Will you pay me? As long as you pay me, I'll just do whatever you tell me to do." At some point, that should graduate into something that leads to a more meaningful use of your time. Right? The corporation will suck away 100,000 hours of your life, like you're selling time for money, and that's just not that's not gonna feel real good when you're on your deathbed, right? So really, I would just say ultimately, a good life would be a black person who says, "I'm gonna figure things out on my own," instead of getting it from TV, politicians, society, or corporations, and I'm going to invest in those things that make sense for me. And it goes back, and this is really an investing conversation. I'll close it on this. Thank you for indulging me and allowing me to go on this stream of consciousness. I know sometimes it may sound redundant or like I'm going into weird spaces, but this is me really doing my absolute best to help you understand economics at a fundamental, deep level, right? But really, at the end of the day, the investing part of it is this. One rule about investing is that you should never invest in something that you don't understand. Has anybody ever heard that? Never invest in a business or anything, a venture, a stock, nothing. If you don't understand how you're going to make your money, don't do it, right? So I think that what happens is that when you think about the biggest investments we make in life, which is our time, our energy, and our attention, we are consistently investing in things that we don't really understand, right? You go to school, make good grades, and get a good job, not because you really know that this is going to lead to what you truly are going to want in life when you're 50 or 60. You do it because that's what you're told. And I want you to think about how often we do things because we're told. There are a lot of people that vote for certain politicians, don't even know why they do it. They can't give you a reason why. They'll just say, well, because that's what we've always been doing. That's what my grandma and my daddy told me to do. I don't think that's a good reason. You shouldn't do things just because you were told. You should try to really sit back and say, okay, let me connect the dots and make sure this is going to lead to what I need it to lead to. Because if you don't, what happens is you have lots of people that are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s who hate their life, who worked really hard their whole life, sacrificed tremendously, have nothing to show for it, and are absolutely miserable. That to me is an example. That to me is the worst case scenario of what I would call a very bad investment. If you're going to invest your life in something, it's like dating a woman when you just met her 10 minutes ago, or dating a man because he's 6 feet tall and makes $100,000 a year. And if you've ever seen how that can go bad, that to me is the example. When we date white supremacy, we have these relationships with corporate America and integration and all that, and we just do it because it seems lit and popular, and that's what everybody else is doing. And then you turn around and wonder why there are so many miserable black people in this country. So many people that feel powerless, that feel that they're constantly struggling, that constantly feel victimized. It's because you never took a minute to step back and look at the whole situation and think it through. So before you invest, you must investigate. You are precious. You are important. You are powerful. If I could go back in time to 1942, I would sit down with as many black people as I could. I would sit next to Malcolm X if he would let me, and I would say, before we make this move, let's really look at let's really analyze this burning house we're integrating into, and let's understand the value of what we have. Let's understand the value of our assets. Let's look at the Negro Leagues, and let me tell you what this league could become if we continue to invest in this. But if you get distracted and you start investing in other people's businesses where you're not getting the benefits, they're going to get rich. You're going to be broke. They're going to absorb everything you have, everything you are, and you'll be left with nothing. They will suck out your energy and give you nothing back, because we know the history of how this country works, and it's very important to be conscious as you move forward. So that's it. I'm done. I'm gonna stop talking. I could probably keep on going, but I don't want to belabor these points. But thank you guys for listening. It was great to see you. If you want to join us for options income on the 9th, we're gonna meet on the 9th at 8:30. Just go to drboyceprime.com. Also on the 13th, next Friday, we're going to do another financial slumber party. And it's all going to be about love and money. And I'm going to bring slides, and we're going to play music and have fun. So I'll text you all the link. Make sure you're on the text list for this class. Text the word morning to the number 87948. So text morning to 87948. I'll see you soon. Have a great day. Thank you so much for listening, guys. Have a good one.